The South Shore bar pizza is skyrocketing in popularity, and we're going to show you step by step the best way to create this pizza with a perfectly textured crust, a tangy tomato sauce, topped with a special blend of rich and buttery cheeses. Let's go! Okay, we're gonna get started with this dough. It's really easy to make. I've already added 445 grams of King Arthur's bread flour to our mixing bowl. And to that, I'm gonna add 6 grams of sugar, 9 grams of regular salt, 9 grams of instant dry yeast. Now we're gonna whisk these dry ingredients together. And now we're gonna add about 242 grams of water. Now for our fats, we're gonna add our oil. This is vegetable oil. Some people like to use corn oil. You could even use olive oil. You can use whatever you like, but I like just the neutral vegetable oil. And finally, we're gonna add a little bit of melted butter just to help give that crust a nice flaky texture. And now we're gonna use our paddle attachment to mix up these ingredients. All right, now our ingredients have combined, and you can see how there's really nothing sticking to the sides of the bowl. We're just gonna take off this little bit of dough that's on the paddle here, and then we're just gonna kind of squish this all together. And now we're gonna cover this with a damp paper towel. We're gonna let it sit like this for about 15 minutes to make sure that the water really has a chance to soak into the dough. Okay, it's been 15 minutes. Let's go ahead and remove this towel and see what we've got. Our dough feels nice and moist now. It's definitely improved its texture for the better. And now we're gonna add our dough hook to finish the mixing. We're gonna let this mix on level 2 for about 15 minutes. And that looks perfect. It's been mixing for about 15 minutes. You can see how it just easily slides off that dough hook. And now we have a really nice consistency of our dough. So we can immediately take this and divide it up into 4ths because this recipe makes 4 little pizzas. Or we can do what I'm gonna do and put it into a storage bag, and we'll let it sit on the counter for about 5 or 6 hours until we're ready to use it. I'm gonna put in a little extra oil in here just to kind of coat the dough ball and make sure it's not gonna stick. We don't need to seal it up. All we need to do is fold it over like that and leave it on the counter until we're ready to use it. If you're enjoying any of the content that you see here today, I hope you'll take a second and click on that like button. That really helps to promote our videos. And a large majority of the people who watch our channel aren't currently subscribed. If you'll click on that subscribe button, it's totally free and it really helps to support the channel. Okay, now that our dough is resting, this is a perfect time to make our sauce. For this sauce, I'm gonna use a really good quality crushed tomato product, one of my favorites, Bianco di Napoli. And we're gonna add some tomato paste to it to get that little extra punch of tomato flavor. All right, now we've got it blended in. It's a little bit thick for my taste, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of water to it to improve the consistency. Okay, that's looking a lot smoother. Now we're gonna make this really simply. We're just gonna add a 1.5 tablespoons of oregano, a teaspoon of sugar, a teaspoon of salt, a little shake of garlic powder, and a couple pinches of red pepper flakes. And now we just stir to combine all those fantastic flavors together. And that's all there is to it. So this is what our dough looks like once it's been resting on our countertop for about 7 hours at room temperature. It's got some nice little air bubbles in it, and that's what's gonna help to make our texture of our dough really light and flaky. So the easiest way to get this dough out is probably just to cut the edge of the bag like this. And then it's really easy just to peel open the bag and get the dough out. Just like that. Now we're gonna divide the dough up into roughly 4ths. And what we're looking for are dough pieces that are roughly 188 grams. All right, this is 182. That's 188. Perfect. And our last one's a little bit smaller at 174. So the pans that we use for this pizza are 10 by 1 inches, and they're coated with a non-stick surface so that our pizzas will pop out easily. For an Amazon link to the exact pan that we're using, see the video description. Before we put our dough balls in, we're gonna add just a little bit of oil to the pan, and then we're just gonna spread it around and basically wipe most of it out with our paper towel. We wanna make sure we get around the edges really well so it doesn't stick on the edges. Now we're gonna take one of our dough balls and we're gonna press it in the pan like this, and then we're just gonna give it time to relax and to spread out. And we're gonna repeat this process for all 4 of our dough balls. All right, now we've got all 4 of our dough balls pressed into the pans, and we're just gonna let them rest like this for about 20 minutes so then we can fully spread them out the rest of the way. Okay, these doughs have been resting in the pans now for about 20 minutes, and now we're ready to press them out the rest of the way. You wanna learn how to do this?
Sure.
Okay, it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so what you want to do is just get a little bit of oil on your fingertips, like that. Go ahead.
Okay.
And then you want to use the pads of your fingers, not the tips, but the pads, and start in the middle and just kind of push out towards the sides. And we're just going to get it so it goes all the way to the edge without getting any thin spots. So don't press down like this, press down like this. Start in the middle like this and work it to the outside.
Okay.
Looking good.
Is there any oil in the pan?
Yeah, there's a little bit of oil in the bottom of the pan, so that's going to keep it from sticking once we bake these.
Did I try to pop any bubbles if they're forming?
Just put your fingers on them and that'll kind of naturally flatten them out. And you can spin the pan like this. See how I'm spinning it? And that way it's easier. You can keep your fingers the same direction and just move the dough. How's it coming?
Pretty good.
All right, let's take a look. It's a little thin there, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to the center. I'm going to work my way out, so that way it's not too thin. We don't want too big of a rim on the sides. Some places actually like to make it that way, but I'm going to make it so it's pretty flat all the way around.
Okay.
Nicely done. You want to try the other one?
Sure.
All right.
I'm going to use the spinning technique. That seems to help.
Okay. Okay, so if you make a little hole like that, just pinch it together like that, fold it over, and it's all healed up. Very well done for your first time pressing out a dough. Good job.
Thanks.
Now that we have our dough completely pressed out, we're actually going to par bake them just like this for about 5 minutes at 450. We found that in our home oven, the texture of the crust is improved by doing it this way. The nice thing about these little pizzas is that we can get all 4 of them in the oven at the same time. Now, one thing we're going to watch is that this kind of dough makes a lot of bubbles, so we've got a little bubble poker handy, and we're going to poke any bubbles that we see forming. Okay, these are ready to come out. If you have any parts of your dough that are uneven, you can use a flat spatula like this and just kind of press on it, and that'll help to get out any unevenness from the dough. Okay, we've given these pizzas a few minutes to cool down, and now you can see we can just lift this up. That's what it looks like underneath. If it's a little bit sticky, you can just use a spatula to kind of go under there and make sure it's all freed up. Now, what's great about doing it this way is that if you don't want to eat all these pizzas at once, we can just wrap these up in some saran wrap and throw them in the refrigerator or even the freezer and get them out as soon as we're ready to have pizza. Okay, for our cheese blend, we're going to be using part cheddar cheese and part whole milk mozzarella. The cheddar part is about 1.5 ounces and the mozzarella is 2.5 ounces for a total of about 4 ounces of cheese on each pizza. Now when we put our sauce on, we want to use a pretty generous amount of sauce, and we want to go all the way to the edges of the pizza with this. Now if you want to go around the edges, you can put a little bit of sauce between the dough and the pan, and what that's going to do is kind of caramelize and give us that laced look that so many people like so much. It's basically a burnt edge. And now we're just going to put the cheese on in an even distribution. So as you probably noticed, I decided to cube the cheese this time instead of shredding it, and that looks a little bit strange if you're not used to seeing it, but what we found that it does is it makes the cheese melt more slowly, and also it prevents it from burning as fast. And so we've just found we really like the melt that we get when we cube the cheese. So this one we're going to make is just a plain cheese pizza, and this other one we're going to add a little bit of pancetta and a little bit of pepperoni on it and make it kind of like a meat lover's pizza. And there we go, ready to go back in the oven for about another 10 minutes at 450. I like to do these pizzas on the very bottom rack, and we'll keep an eye on them and we'll move them up to the top if we need to. Okay, these pizzas are done. Grab that and pull it out, and this one as well. Okay, and when I get these pizzas out of the oven, I like to put them onto a cooling rack or a screen. Looks so good. And these pizzas don't have much lacing on them. If you really like that burnt edge or that lacing, you can take some shredded cheese and actually put it along the side of the pan, and you'll get even more of that burnt edge. And to serve it, we'll just move it to our tray, and it's ready to cut, and we are ready to eat. Okay, let's take a look at this crust. Perfect. Just the way we like it. That's it for today's video. We hope that you enjoyed it and that you'll try making this pizza at home. We're sure that your friends and family are gonna love it. Until next time, pizza out.